What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other great host of this show, Nick. And Nick, still the offseason. We got the NFC and AFC championships coming up this weekend. But for right now, for the purposes of this episode, we're talking salary cap, Les Snead, the front office, and some adjustments that we should expect. But first and most importantly, how are you, my good brother?
I'm good, man. I'm talking myself into betting on the Lions already. That's where I am at this point of the week in the AFC, NFC playoff picture. As far as the cap goes, I'm excited to get started.
So you're going full speed Lions. You're going 100% Jared Goff, even though
I'm against Ryan. I don't care about the points. I think that they actually have like a legit shot. It feels, you know what it feels like? Somebody said this to me and I was like, oh, wow, it does feel like that. It feels like the Cubs run in like whatever year that was.
It was?
Yeah, like 2014, I want to say.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, around there. When they won and it was kind of like a big deal that they kept rising, that's what this feels like. Because it's like, even if you're not a Detroit fan, people are just like, oh, wow, how about the Lions? You know?
It's definitely going to be really exciting. I think everybody is going to be rooting for the Lions, but I mean, that are Rams fans. But I don't know, maybe there's some controversy from, you know, the wild card round and everything that happened with Matthew Stafford and Tyler Higbee and Kirby Smart and all that kind of stuff. So, or Kirby Joseph rather. So the salary cap is really interesting, right? Like I think that the way that it's going to be broken down in this offseason, we'll get to your picks later on, is interesting because you're looking at the three weight bearing walls and you're thinking to yourself, are restructures on the table? Can we get into extensions? Who else can we look at? Are we looking at some other unrestricted free agents that we could bring in if they're the appropriate price and can fit under the cap? So we're really just kind of laying out some hypotheticals for you guys today. Just wanted to kind of look at, you know, some of the details in terms of if you restructure this player, this is how much money you'll have. Here are some of the free agents that we can work with. Here are some of the unrestricted free agents that we have for the Rams that we could potentially re-sign. So this is what we're looking at to start. So Matthew Stafford is 19.78% of the total salary cap. Your three weight-bearing walls are in total 45% of your salary cap as of right now in 2024. Aaron Donald's 13.6% of your salary cap, and Cooper Kupp is 11.9%. So all in, 45% of your 2024 salary cap is based on these three players. So as you kind of look at it holistically, you can kind of see, you know, unrestricted versus restricted free agents that the Rams have right now. The team's total cap space in 2024 per over the cap, $27,699,574. There are creative ways. Everybody knows that you could adjust the cap. Les Snead can manipulate some things. You know, being so far over the cap, we know in recent years with the Rams is a little bit of a myth because they find ways to make late adjustments. They find ways to restructure contracts and convert them into bonuses, or they figure out ways to extend players and push those dollars into later years. But like what we're looking at with unrestricted versus restricted free agents and the current dead cap, $752,000 in 2024 dead cap as it stands right now. The Rams last year were at $75 million total in dead cap, carrying that around in their back pockets. But right now it's just Logan Bruss and Robert Rochelle that are under the current dead cap. So all things to kind of keep in mind as we're working through this little exercise.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I think a lot of people fall into the camp of Brandon Beane, who is the Bills GM, who was like, well, we have to make sure that we don't follow what the Rams did because, you know, we don't want to be in a season where we have all this, like, you know, we're like well over the cap and now we are completely shot ourselves in the foot. And the turnaround from the Super Bowl season has been, I mean, amazing. The Bills went one game further than we did this year. And they're talking about how ours is a replica that shouldn't be replicated. I mean, I think it's just funny now because you look at where the Rams are currently, and I think they have just as good of odds, if not slightly better, to make it to the big dance than Buffalo right now.
Oh, like next year, for sure. Absolutely. 100%. And it's reasons because like you have somebody like Les Snead, you have people in the building that know how to get out of contracts, right? You know kind of when to cut your losses. Jalen Ramsey is a really good example of when they were able to do that, right? Because you can move on, you have to take on the dead cap, but then you have to kind of be able to reposition, repivot, and find some cheaper free agents to fill out that secondary. And that's just one example of what Les Snead was able to do across the table. But in terms of potential moves, we were looking at just the total cap dollars. If you're looking at restructures, Matthew Stafford, you want to restructure him, you save $19.86 million towards your 2024 cap. Cooper Kupp, you would restructure him, you'd add $12.52 million towards your 2024 cap. Noteboom could be a candidate as well. If you were to move on from him after 6-1, I believe the Rams only take on $5 million in dead money this year and then $10 million next, but he could be a candidate to restructure, so you don't have to continue to take on dead money. You're talking the Rams from $27.6 million to $69 million total if you just make those three adjustments in terms of restructures. That's not definitive. It's just hypothetical. If this happens, then this could happen. And in terms of re-sign and priority, Kevin Dotson has to be at the top of the list. When you're looking at like what is he valued in the open market per year, 12 to 14 million in that range per year. It's a ton of money for a right guard. So
that's a lot. Yeah.
It's
so much that the producer put a little Kevin from Home Alone emoji next to it.
Because like, are you going to be able to, because you're looking at, in this offseason, can you find somebody in your secondary for somewhere along that cost?
Yeah.
Expensive, but that's a quality player at that cost. Your edge rushers, if you don't go with a Brian Burns or a Josh Allen, maybe you look in that second tier, in terms of a Zadarius Smith or a Bryce Huff or a Chase Young. Those guys are more within that ballpark in terms of contracts and overall value. So Kevin Dotson at 12 to 14 million in that range is going to be really expensive, and it's going to be tough to sustain in the open market if you're going to pay that much money. So here are some other free agents too that we're looking at. When we're looking kind of like, if you want to bring back Kevin Dotson, that's great. It's going to be a big chunk of the salary cap. But then there's also some other free agents like we just talked about with edge rushers that you could kind of fulfill that need in a different way. You don't have to pay all the money in the world for a Josh Allen or a Brian Burns. Look at the estimations for Burns and Josh Allen, 21 to 25 million per year. Josh Allen's coming off of the best year of his career. He's estimated at 23 to 25 million per year. So yeah, those are all, it's realistic. Like, be logical for a second and think to yourself, are we going to pay all this money for this type of player if you're not able to extend it out over a 5-6 year period? It's difficult to fit within under the cap.
Yeah. And I think there are some glaring holes in the team right now. I mean, edge, absolutely. And then secondary, but also kicker. And right here, Greg the Leg, unrestricted free agent next year. Bringing back Greg Zuerlein is a real possibility for this team. It is funny because it actually reminds me of something that happened to you and I, Dean. This was probably circa 2000. Dean found a $50 bill on the floor at Toys R Us. And I remember he was like, oh my God, we can buy whatever we want. Let's buy a video game. And I was like, why don't we get a bunch of different toys and, scatter, stretch our $50. And that's kind of where they are right now. It's a great situation because you can get the Super Mario 64 for $50 in Brian Burns and love it forever and have it for a 5-year period. Or you can, you can really stretch your dollar and fill on a lot of more holes. But exactly, somebody like Brian Burns is worth making that big chunk, in my opinion, or Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And just based on needs and performance of the defense and personnel, a lot of this is dependent on if Raheem Morris stays or leaves. If he stays within the building, you're just kind of a plug and play, a couple of players away in your secondary and along your defensive line from kind of being the same type of defense with the same type of personnel and same type of scheme. Just be able to make some adjustments, better that personnel, and be able to rush the passer in a more efficient way. And then also like you talked about, some other games in this example or some other players that you could fit. If you want to re-sign Kevin Dotson, then yeah, definitely Chase Young, Zadarius Smith, Bryce Huff, those kind of players are going to be much more in your ballpark. And then in terms of secondary, you're kind of within the same mindset of like a Jalen Johnson, a L'Jarius Snead, a Kendall Fuller. Those guys are going to be really expensive. You're going to probably have to focus on value in the secondary for this offseason, and you're also going to have to address it earlier on in the draft. Like we talked about, it might be completely different this time next week if Raheem Morris goes and gets hired for the Washington Commanders, or he goes and takes the Atlanta Falcons job. But it seems like that's going to go to Bill Belichick. So maybe there's only one other open spot with the Commanders. So if everything stays put, then you should really just be looking to potentially bring in maybe 1-2 of these players and lock up every single level of your defense, the defensive line, the second level, and then the third level in the secondary. And then bring in Greg the Leg. Why not? Keep adding pieces.
Then even fourth level, it's like Carson Wentz, really. You know, like somebody like to keep him on the team, so you don't have to worry about, you know, an older staffer getting hurt and being completely up Schitt's Creek without a paddle.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. You have to, right? You have to have a backup quarterback this season. You just don't know what his market is going to dictate. If he'll take another 1-year deal, you know, there's also other older free agent quarterbacks that are going to be unrestricted this offseason that you could look at Joe Flacco. You know, those
Right. Or Andy Dalton, I think, is a free agent as well. Not that I want to bring him in, but just
but it's
an example.
Yeah. And then some other offensive free agents. Like we were talking about players like Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman Jr. as the X receiver opposite of Tutu Atwell, or in rotation with Tutu Atwell. But those guys are all going to be extremely costly this year, in the $20 million per range per year. Like those guys are kind of out of the conversation unless dramatic amounts of cap space are cleared up. I think the edge is going to be much more of a focus in terms of free agency. But the 1-year rental approach I thought worked really well with Demarcus Robinson. Like you could either re-sign him to another cheap deal if he's willing to take it, or you could look at some other X receivers that are kind of under the radar and can be found in this upcoming draft. Maybe a similar process in terms of what you're thinking with the secondary and how to fill some of those needs. But is anyone still interested in Odell Beckham Jr.? Like he's not going to be looking for a long-term contract. He couldn't get one with Baltimore. He's unrestricted free agent again this season. Would you bring him in for a 1-year deal?
I mean, I guess it depends on if D-Rob kind of re-signs or not. I thought he was great last year. Like I think post injury from the Super Bowl, we haven't really seen Odell be the Odell that he used to be. So
despite how great he played in that Rams game when we saw them in Baltimore, like Jesus, flashes of greatness is breaking down our secondary.
Rocking the Crenshaw Mall Rams shirt as well.
He's the best. I wouldn't mind bringing him in on another 1-year deal, but the problem is like the cost of renting a DeMarcus Robinson type player versus renting an Odell Beckham Jr. is different. Like it's an extra $4 or $5 million.
Yeah, you got to convert his money into cryptocurrency. It's a whole big thing.
So true. And then some other stuff in case you guys are interested. Les Snead has been pretty vocal about the efficient linebacker play and the importance of it in the playoffs. Look at some of the linebacker play with a team like Baltimore, right? A Roquan Smith and a Patrick Queen, who, oh, by the way, is an unrestricted free agent. But like, look who's still standing. Like extending Ernest Jones may make a ton of sense, as it does extending Aaron Donald. And the draft class, when you talk about the Rams' total 2024 salary cap, always something that you have to consider is that the draft class this year is going to be a little bit more expensive. You have the first and second round picks in there. So it's likely going to be between anywhere from $10 to $12 million. So when you say the Rams have X amount of cap space, unfortunately, you have to add the draft class on top of it. But 3 to 4 restructures and or extensions would unlikely unlock a ton of cap space without having to take on any dead money, as they carried around $75 million in 2023 as of last year, as we mentioned. But this year, they're under $1 million. So you're thinking to yourself, we don't have to cut ties with Brian Allen. We don't have to cut ties with Joe Noteboom. It's good to have those people in the building, especially if you're going to lose a Kevin Dotson. You kind of want to keep some continuity within the offensive line and avoid any kind of dead cap situations when it makes sense. So
the huge difference from this year and last year was the upstanding offensive line play. It allows Kyron to get going. Stafford can stay up and, not get injured and knocked out of like half the season. And that's really, and the last year we lost another pillar who was a pillar in Andrew Whitworth. So it was like adjusting with that and so many injuries and whatnot. And that's why when somebody said this Lions team kind of looks like an alternate reality where the Rams had kept Goff and built the offensive line like strong around him, That's why I see a lot of similarities in that team with us and also
No,
Josh Reynolds.
absolutely.
But still,
Ben Johnson. Yeah.
yeah. But still, like I want to keep as many of those guys as we possibly can. I think that should be a top priority.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to figure out a way to keep Alaric Jackson, right? So as a
Mhm.
restricted free agent, this is what happens with undrafted players. Like going into their fourth year, if somebody's going to offer, a big contract to Alaric Jackson, the Rams have the opportunity to match it. And I think that they would, but it depends on what the contract looks like. They might first round, second round tender him. So all things to kind of keep in mind with how to navigate with an unrestricted or with a restricted free agent rather. And then guys like, some of the under the radar players like Michael Hoyt, you're obviously going to take a second look at Akella Witherspoon. Troy Reeder seems to be able to just jump on the practice squad at any point in any season. And then John Johnson and Jordan Fuller, like the Rams never pay their safeties. The last time they paid a safety was, I think, 2017 in LaMarcus Joyner, and it just went tragically bad. So John Johnson being a rental, Jordan Fuller was in the last year of his contract. He's probably going to command some dollars in the open market. So like it just gives you a really good visual, I feel like, of some of the pieces that are going to be moving. Teams are never the same from one year to the next, but you have to be able to kind of replicate some of that methodology to where you could add cheap players, but also this is the opportunity to where you could add one or two massive pieces that can take you far over the top through the NFC Championship and back into the Super Bowl. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're getting at.
Your team right now is absolutely built to win in division. They went 5-1. But I think if you want to like legitimately win the division, you have to bring in, if Brock Purdy continues to be the 49ers quarterback, you have to bring in somebody that's going to be able to bring pressure to him, because that's how you beat him.
Yeah.
And that's why somebody like Brian Burns, Josh Allen is so shiny.
Yeah. And how about some suggestions from the fans? Because we passed it along. We passed it back to the fans. We were like, what are we thinking, guys? What do you guys want to see Les Snead do? Are any of these moves going to be crazy enough for your liking? Or do you just kind of want to see them sit, play a little bit safe, and then sign a couple of players like you mentioned? So this is the first one that we got from Jason.
Jason at Freedom Crib says, they should extend Donald since he's in the last year of his contract, lowering his cap hit, restructuring both Kupp and Stafford, re-sign their own O-line free agents first, spending remaining money on best OLB/CB available. I mean, that's great in concept, right? There's no guarantee. I think they tried to restructure Stafford already, and he was like, no. I'm not going to do that. You paid me this money. LA is expensive. And it was after the Super Bowl win. So maybe now, after 2 seasons, you can kind of come back to the table.
I think you can. Yeah, I think you definitely could.
I mean,
but I think when I saw that tweet, I was thinking to myself, this is kind of like the basis of the episode. Like we obviously want to bring in outside linebacker help. You want to be able to rush the passer. We have to pay the guys on the offensive line to keep continuity, and it's a big priority that Les Snead mentioned in the offseason. And then some of the other things like extending Aaron Donald and extending Ernest Jones before the last year of his contract. Those are all things that take cap out of 2024 and push them to 5, 6, and 7. And it gives you a much better opportunity and more cap space to play with without having to take on massive restructures like a Cooper Kupp or a Matthew Stafford. So that's the other. If Matthew Stafford doesn't want to restructure his contract, there's probably 4 or 5 other ways for the Rams to be able to create some more cap space. So we got another one from Sly.
Just add on that for one more thing before I read this next one. I wonder how much longer we have with Aaron Donald in Horns.
That's why I want to extend him.
Yeah.
I mean,
what's the max extension? Like 3 years, probably?
Probably 3-4 years, you would think.
Yeah. Can he do it? Can he keep it going that long? I hope so.
No, I hope so.
So difficult, that position. All right. Sly at ThinkBlue47 says, first got to take care of Dotson. 100. Agree. Second, try and bring back Wentz. I love that as well. And with whatever is left, try and pick up edge, sass, outside linebacker. Doesn't have to be Brian or Burns or Allen. Maybe Bryce Huff or Chasen. What's that guy's name?
K-Levon Chasian.
K-Levon.
Something like that.
K-Levon.
That's another great suggestion and right along the lines of the way that we built this episode. We got one more. Chauncey?
Dean, why don't you take this one?
Chauncey. Big Chaunce, 64. Big hugs, big Chaunce. Keep Dotson, extend Jones, and sign a big pass rusher. If they restructure Staff, Kupp, and somebody else, maybe grow up maybe a grown up corner, or just a decent backup and kicker. So yeah, I mean, like, we need the kicker. I'm glad somebody brought up the kicker. That kicker is Greg the Leg. I'm not looking at anybody else. Greg, we're putting you on a first-class flight from New York straight to Los Angeles. Get back in the building. We need you kicking field goals for the next 3 years for the Rams.
Then we would have 2 players that played on the St. Louis Rams in new modern horns, because right now it's just Aaron Donald.
Yep, that would be awesome. Oh, also Rob Havenstein.
Oh my God. Yeah, 3.
And 3. Higgs, but Higgs is going to be out in the beginning of this year, right?
Oh my God, right. He must have.
Yeah. Higby's he was in Jared Goff's draft class, no?
Yeah.
Or the year before.
No, I think it was Goff's.
Right? I think it was too. We got 2 more. Perry Stewart signed Brian Burns to a 5-year deal that will give you room to spread out the cap hit. Hell yeah. That's kind of exactly what we're thinking. It's like, can you spread it out? You don't have to take it. You don't have to take $25 million in total in that first year. It's going to be too expensive and too hard to overcome if you're going to try and pay some other players. And then also, Stat Padford is my Super Bowl quarterback at Laf Keiko Panarin. I think defense will depend mostly if Raheem leaves or stays.
Yeah.
So another really good point that we.
That's what I was saying last episode. I mean, that's kind of what we made the whole episode about. I thought for sure he was going to get the Carolina job, and then a minute before we started this episode, that was given away to somebody from the Bucks.
Yeah, so, Dave Canales.
I guess Seattle is still an option as well.
Yeah, but I don't think they would. Well, I guess they would.
No, that would be something. That would absolutely be something.
I think they are. Would do. They're definitely interviewing Raheem Morris. You saw Harbaugh go to the Chargers last night, so he's not going to Los Angeles. Or staying in Los Angeles, rather.
I mean, if the Chargers got Brandon Staley, who was the Rams defensive coordinator, and then immediately go get the other Rams defensive coordinator, you can't do that.
No. I think we got a fun little segment this week. We got Knicks picks.
Yeah,
we got NFC Championship Knicks picks coming off of a 5-0 week.
Let's do it.
5-0. We're doing that one. I'm pretty impressed that you got all 5 of your picks correct. Was it the first time this season that you've been able to do that?
It happens once a season, sometimes twice. It finally happens now during the playoffs when the stakes are high. So shout out to everybody who tailed. You're welcome. Call me The Rock and Moana. Live action or animated, I'm both. Anyway, so we're moving on. Dean, I just want to kind of talk these games out for a second. So you have the Chiefs Ravens to start. And then it goes right into Lions, 49ers, and it's the same day. I'm kind of bummed. I feel like they used to be Saturday, Sunday, but I guess that's never been the case. They've both always been on Sunday. Obviously, the marquee matchup in our eyes is the Lions 49ers, not only for Jared Goff and Josh Reynolds, but also just to knock out the 49ers. So why don't we start there? Do you think the Lions have a legitimate shot in winning this game?
Yeah, of course. I watched that Green Bay game. Obviously wet environment. So Jordan Love and Brock Purdy both kind of taking some irrational shots. But I felt like that San Francisco was a little bit shaky, a little bit wobbly. Yeah. They're going to be hosting the Lions in their home stadium. I wish that game was in Detroit, but I think that 6.5 point spread is too much.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a little crazy to be giving them that many points, especially when they've been putting up at least over 21 consistently in the last couple of weeks, which leads me to believe Lions +7 is absolutely going to be one of Nick's picks. I like that. I'm gonna put that in. Also, I like this same game parlay. Montgomery anytime touchdown scorer. Throw in Christian McCaffrey anytime touchdown scorer, and then I like Goff over 1.5 throwing touchdowns. So that's juice. That's juicy. That means the Lions have to score at least 21 points because Goff has to throw. I mean, I guess the Montgomery touchdown could be a pass, so it's possible.
Let me see it. So I got Lions +7, same game parlay of Montgomery plus McCaffrey anytime touchdown scores. And then are you doing Jared Goff separately of that?
I was gonna. Yeah, you know what? Let's make that separate because if it's all together, there's a chance of it just not.
And what's your Goff bet?
Over 1.5 touchdowns.
1.5 touchdowns. Might have them both to Laporta.
Yeah, maybe.
Might get one to Williams. Might get one to St. Brown.
How about one to Zach Ertz?
Yeah, how about that?
Weird.
Good call.
Yeah. And then let's mosey on over to the earlier game. Chiefs Ravens. I don't even think I'll be able to watch this one. I have like some breakfast brunch that I'm invited to. I hope the person whose brunch I'm going to is listening to this, because now it sounds like I really don't want to go. I really don't want to go, but I'm gonna go for them. I don't know, Dean. Once again, I feel conflicted. Patrick Mahomes is an underdog, and why am I not taking him? If he's plus money at any point in the playoffs, why are you not taking him?
I've never seen Lamar win an AFC championship. I've only seen Mahomes play in AFC championships. That's it.
Yeah.
My eyeballs tell me that I would be insane to bet against Patrick Mahomes, especially because I bet against him last week when the Bills hosted them in Buffalo. Huge mistake. Not doing it again.
Yeah. I really see no reason to. I also, if you are the NFL and there is a storyline you want to bring to the Super Bowl for viewers, for audience alike, one of them absolutely.
I'm going to say Mahomes versus Jared Goff.
No, one of them I'm going to say is Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce playing in the Super Bowl. And Taylor Swift being at the Super Bowl itself will bring
As a fan?
Will bring a lot of different eyes to watch the Super Bowl this year. That's number one. And then number two, not as big of a deal, I don't think, but the Lions have continuously drawn in huge crowds to the actual, like, of the viewership.
Yeah, network viewership.
Yeah, network viewership. So I mean, I don't think it's scripted. I don't think there's any way it could be. There's just too many people on the field, too many things going on. Maybe the refs can have an influence here or there, but it would be remarkable if it's Lions Chiefs. The first game of the season rematch, this time with Kelce. Lions' first Super Bowl appearance ever, potentially first win. Like, I also don't like it. If it's Lions Ravens, I think it's over. I don't think the Lions can win that at all. I also think whoever comes out of the AFC is just going to be the better team, unless you have like magic.
It's going to be great. The only thing that I'm legitimately rooting for is the 49ers to lose. And that goes in tandem with rooting for Jared Goff and the Lions. And then whatever happens after that is gravy. So,
all right. So we have the Montgomery and McCaffrey. We have Lions +7, Goff over 1.5, and then just Chiefs money line. That's it. Those are the picks. I don't see a reason not to get to bet against Patrick Mahomes. I'm giving no credit to Lamar and the MVP, and I'm sorry, but I just don't think that there's a world where Patrick just loses this game with.
But then there's also the Jim Harbaugh world and the John Harbaugh world, and who's got it better than us? Nobody. So I don't know. There's a brother thing going on, and the family thing with the Harbaughs, and some magic with Lamar in Baltimore.
You know who else has a brother thing going on? A huge brother, Jason and Travis Kelce.
The next episode, I'm expecting you to do with a full can of Bud Light and no shirt.
If the Lions win, I will do that.
Deal. Thank you guys for listening. We love you guys. It is greatly appreciated that you guys spent some time with us. If you're enjoying the podcast, if you want to hear more, make sure that you ram it. Been doing this for like 6 years, but like I was looking back at Les Snead and his career with Wikipedia. He's been pro scouting. Was hired out of college in 94, 95 pro scout for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he's been in football and front office and professional scouting our entire lifetimes. We think we're doing the hard work. We're just doing 6 years of a podcast. It's all about Les Snead. It's all about the Rams' front office. And what is to come in 2024, I expect magic to happen, sparks to fly, and the Rams to be back in the NFC Championship next year.
Absolutely. I agree. I also think that what we do versus what Les does is not even comparable. But you know what? I will say this. We have definitely shown growth in 6 years. We have become a better podcast, where I'm sure Les Dean's going, I don't know. Les also did the same. The continuous rise for Rams Brothers the Pod will continue to grow. Check out underneath right here if you're watching on YouTube. There's going to be there's merch, and there's actually a new piece of merch. There's a cartoon versions of Dean and I that I drew myself that you can get on mugs, get it on T-shirts.
I just ordered a sticker. Actually, I got a sticker from it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do a giveaway right now. I'm gonna buy somebody a T-shirt of the cartoon versions of Dean and I. You have to tweet at Dean. So Dean's gonna have to send these to me at Dean Vez. Something relating to Nintendo. Don't care what it is, just has to be Nintendo focused. So I'm bringing back an old classic. And then you can get one of the shirts. And also, good job by you listening to the entire episode. So thank you. Like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you guys. Go Rams. Talk to you soon.